The dust cloud was 3 miles out when he spotted it through the binoculars, moving fast, too fast for the terrain. Whoever was driving that vehicle was either running from something or towards something, and neither option suggested anything good in this part of the Chihuahuan Desert, where the only things that moved with urgency were predators and prey. The temperature was pushing 112 degrees, the kind of heat that turned metal into branding irons and made breathing feel like swallowing broken glass. Midday in August. The sun hung directly overhead like a malevolent eye, bleaching the color from everything except the endless variations of brown and tan, and the occasional defiant green of a creosote bush that had learned to survive where nothing else could. He lowered the binoculars and took a drink from his canteen. Warm water, tasted like plastic and minerals. Better than nothing. Better than the alternative, which was dying of dehydration in a place where your body would mummify before anyone found it. He'd been tracking the coyotes for 2 days, not the animal kind, the human kind, the ones who smuggled people across the border for cash and left them to die when things got complicated. He'd found 3 bodies in the last month, 2 men and a woman, dead from exposure, abandoned by their guides when the water ran out and the journey became liability instead of profit. The old man had been a lot of things in his life. Soldier, operator, government asset with a classification level that required 3 different signatures just to acknowledge he existed, but that was ancient history, filed away in archives that would stay sealed for another 30 years, assuming anyone even remembered to unseal them. Now he was just a private citizen with too much training and too much free time, and a moral compass that wouldn't let him ignore the bodies piling up in the desert. The dust cloud was closer now, 2 miles maybe. He could make out the shape, pickup truck, white or light-colored, moving erratically, not following any road or trail, just cutting straight across the hard pan and arroyos like physics and terrain were suggestions instead of laws. He pulled the binoculars back up, focused. The truck bounced over a wash, caught air, landed hard, kept moving, definitely running from something. Then he saw the second dust cloud, behind the first, maybe half a mile back, multiple vehicles, 3 at least, organized pursuit, professional, the kind of chase that ended in blood or bodies or both. He watched the geometry play out. The lead truck was heading roughly northeast, trying to make it to the highway probably. Interstate 10 was about 8 miles out. If they made it that far, they could disappear into traffic, become anonymous, survive, but they weren't going to make it. The pursuing vehicles were faster, better drivers, gaining with every mile. Simple math. The equation solved itself in blood, and the desert didn't care who won as long as someone died to feed the sand. The old man made a decision, probably stupid, definitely not his problem. But he'd stopped ignoring his instincts about 30 years ago when they'd saved his life in a Iraqi village that didn't exist on any map. He moved back to his truck, old Chevy, rebuilt engine, heavy suspension. The kind of vehicle that looked like it belonged to a rancher or a prospector, but had modifications that suggested someone who needed to go places normal trucks couldn't reach. He opened the lockbox in the truck bed. Inside was hardware that definitely wasn't standard ranching equipment. AR-15 platform, custom build, 16-inch barrel, holographic sight, 30-round magazine, 2 more magazines in the carrier, light, accurate, reliable. The kind of weapon that had been refined through 20 years of desert warfare into something approaching perfection. He pulled it out, checked the chamber. Loaded, always loaded. Unloaded guns were just expensive clubs. His sidearm was already on his hip. Glock 19. 9mm, 17 rounds, 1 in the pipe. Backup weapon was a snub-nosed .357 revolver in an ankle holster. 5 rounds. Last resort, the kind of gun you used when everything else had gone sideways and you needed something that would absolutely work, no matter how much sand and blood had gotten into the mechanism. He climbed into the truck, started the engine, pulled out from behind the rock formation where he'd been glassing the desert, pointed the truck northeast, toward the intercept point. The geometry was clear in his head. Lead truck would pass about a mile from his current position in approximately 4 minutes. Pursuit vehicles maybe 2 minutes behind that. If he timed it right, he could cut between them, become a variable in an equation that thought it was already solved. The truck bounced over the hardpan. Suspension absorbed most of it, but not all. His kidneys were going to hate him tomorrow, if there was a tomorrow. Funny how that thought still occurred even after all these years. The assumption of continuity. The expectation that the sun would rise again and you'd be there to see it. Most people took it for granted. People who'd lived through certain kinds of experiences knew better. He pushed the truck harder, 50 miles per hour over terrain that suggested 20. The speedometer was a suggestion. The desert was hard and flat here. Ancient lake bed, dried up 10,000 years ago. Now it was just cracked earth and rocks and the occasional skeleton of something that had made bad decisions about water conservation. He could see the lead truck now, not through binoculars, just naked eye. White Toyota Tacoma, newer model. Covered in dust and dents, 3 people visible in the cab. Packed tight, probably more in the bed under a tarp or cover. The pursuit vehicles resolved into clarity. 3 trucks, all dark-colored, all moving in formation. Professional, military precision. Not cops. Cops would have called for air support, would have set up roadblocks, would have done 100 things that involved radios and backup and following procedure. These guys were doing violence, direct action, the kind that didn't leave witnesses or generate paperwork. The old man angled his truck to intercept. The Tacoma saw him coming, swerved, didn't know if he was friend or foe. Smart. Trust no one in the desert. Everyone's a threat until proven otherwise. He flashed his headlights. Universal signal, neutral, not hostile, maybe friendly. The Tacoma maintained course but didn't veer away, accepting the unknown variable because the known variables behind them were definitely trying to kill them. He pulled alongside the Tacoma, close enough to see faces. Driver was maybe 30, brown skin, terrified eyes. Woman in the middle, younger. Could be his sister or wife, or just another soul trying to make it north. Man on the passenger side was older, gray in his hair. Holding something. Gun maybe. Hard to tell through the window and dust. The old man pointed behind them, pointed at his own truck, made a gesture. I'll handle them. You keep running. Don't know if they understood. Don't know if it mattered. He dropped back. Let the Tacoma pull ahead, positioned himself between the runners and the hunters. Became the variable that changed everything. The pursuit trucks saw him, didn't slow down. Why would they? Just another vehicle in the desert. Probably some lost tourist or rancher who'd picked the wrong day for a drive. They'd blow past him, continue the chase, kill whoever was in that Tacoma, and be back across the border before sunset. Easy day, routine work. Then the old man did something they didn't expect. He stopped his truck, perpendicular to their approach, blocking their direct line, creating an obstacle that required a decision, go around or go through. Either way, it cost time, and in a chase, time was everything. He stepped out of the truck, AR-15 in hand, took position behind the engine block. Best cover available in the middle of nowhere. Cast iron engine would stop most small arms fire. Wouldn't stop everything, but it would stop enough. He shouldered the weapon, found the sight picture, tracked the lead pursuit vehicle, let them close to 300 yards, 250, 200. Have you ever stood in the open desert with 3 trucks full of armed men bearing down on you and known, absolutely known, that the next 60 seconds would determine if you died here or made it home? That kind of clarity cuts through everything, strips away all the bullshit, reduces life to breath and trigger pull and the absolute commitment to violence. Drop a comment if you've ever felt that moment when everything slows down and speeds up at the same time. The lead truck tried to swerve around him. The driver saw the rifle, saw the man behind it, made the calculation. Go wide. Avoid contact. Continue mission. The old man adjusted aim, led the target, squeezed. 3-round burst, modern doctrine, controlled fire. The rounds punched through the truck's grill into the radiator. Steam erupted. The truck lurched, slowed, not stopped, but crippled. It veered off, started trailing smoke and coolant. The second truck didn't swerve. The driver made a different calculation. Kill the obstacle, continue pursuit. The truck accelerated straight at him. Chicken run, desert rules. First one to flinch loses. The old man didn't flinch. Adjusted aim. Higher, windshield. Center mass on the driver. Squeezed. The windshield spiderwebbed. The driver slumped. The truck veered. No hand on the wheel anymore. Just momentum and gravity. It rolled. Once, twice, 3 times. Came to rest on its roof. Dust clouds settling around it like a funeral shroud. The third truck stopped. Hard brake. skidded sideways in the dust. Doors opened, men piled out, 4 of them, all armed. AK variants. The Kalashnikov was still the most common weapon on Earth. Reliable, simple, built to be used by conscripts and criminals and anyone in between. 7.62 by 39, effective range about 300 meters. They were outside that, barely. They opened fire anyway, full auto, spray and pray. Rounds kicked up dust and rocks, whined off the hardpan. One punched through the truck's hood, another took out the side mirror. None of them hit the old man behind the engine block. Poor discipline, panic fire, wasting ammunition. He waited, let them burn through their magazines, counted the seconds. 30 rounds gone in about 3 seconds of sustained fire. They'd reload. That was the window. He popped up. Acquired target. The shooter on the left. Closest threat. Squeezed. Double tap. Center mass. The man went down. Second target. The one trying to reload while crouched behind the truck's front quarter panel. The AR's holographic sight made it almost too easy. Squeeze. The man's head snapped back. Down. Third target was scrambling for cover. Running. Bad choice. Moving targets were harder but not impossible. Lead the target. Predict movement. Squeeze. The man stumbled. Fell. Didn't get up. The fourth man made the smartest decision of his life. Dropped his weapon. Put his hands up. Universal signal. Surrender. Non-combatant. Don't shoot. The old man kept the rifle trained on him but didn't fire. No point. Fight was over. The math had changed. 3 men down, 1 surrendering. The vehicle from the rollover wasn't moving, no one emerging. Either dead or too hurt to matter. The first truck with the shot radiator was limping away, trying to escape, making maybe 20 miles an hour, trailing steam and smoke. They'd be walking soon. The desert would finish what the old man started. Heat stroke, dehydration, exposure. The desert was patient, always got its due in the end. He kept the rifle up, moved toward the surrendering man. Standard tactical approach. Never assume surrender means safety. People got desperate, did stupid things. The man kept his hands visible, smart. He was maybe 25, cartel ink on his arms. Teardrops under his left eye, 3 of them. Either 3 kills or 3 years inside. Either way, it marked him as someone who'd lived in violence long enough to know when the odds had shifted past recovery. The old man reached him, kicked the AK away, patted him down, found a pistol, tossed it, found a knife, tossed it, found a phone, looked at it. No signal out here, useless, tossed it anyway. The man watched him with eyes that were calculating survival odds, trying to determine if the old man would execute him or let him walk. Both were possibilities in the desert, where law enforcement was a radio call away and nobody monitored the frequencies. "You speak English?" the old man asked, voice rough from dust and heat and not using it much. "Si, yes, I speak. Who are you chasing?" The man hesitated. Loyalty versus survival. Old equation. Survival usually won. Just people. Nobody. They steal something. We get it back. What did they steal? Another hesitation. Longer this time. Product. Belonged to my boss. They take it. Try to run. The old man nodded. Understood. Rival crew or opportunistic thieves. Didn't matter which. In the border economy, theft meant death. That was the rule. Steal from the cartels and you died. Your family died. Your friends died. Anyone who might have helped you died. Object lesson, deterrent. The only law that mattered out here. Your boss gonna be happy you lost? The man's face went pale under the dust and sun damage. No, he going to be very not happy. Then you got a choice, the old man said. Voice flat, empty of judgment, just stating facts. You can walk back to wherever you came from. Tell your boss you ran into someone who made the odds bad. Take whatever consequence comes from that. Or you can stay here in the desert, die slow, nobody finds you until the coyotes and vultures finish. Either way, you're done chasing that truck. The man looked at his dead companions, at the wrecked vehicles, at the desert stretching empty in every direction. Math happening behind his eyes, bad options versus worse options. The cartel would kill him for failure, might kill him slow if they decided to make an example. The desert would kill him certain if he tried to walk out without water or transport. But there was a third option. Slim, maybe impossible, but still there. You let me go. Not really a question, more like testing if the option existed. "I'm not a cop," the old man said. "I'm not anyone. You walk away right now. I forget I saw you. But you go back toward that truck or those people. I'll drop you same as your friends. Clear?" The man nodded, rapid, eager, grasping the lifeline. "Clear, very clear. I go, I walk, I no look back." "Smart," the old man said. "Start walking." The man walked. South. Back toward Mexico. Back toward whatever consequences awaited him. The old man watched him for a minute, watched him get smaller against the vast emptiness. Then he turned back to his truck. The Tacoma was long gone. Somewhere northeast, heading for the highway and safety and whatever life waited on the other side of survival. He walked to the rolled vehicle, looked inside. 2 men, both dead, necks broken in the roll, quick at least. The desert was merciful in its efficiency sometimes. He walked to the men he'd shot, confirmed what he already knew, all dead. Clean kills. The kind they taught in sniper school when the target absolutely had to go down and stay down. He felt nothing looking at them, no satisfaction, no regret. Just the empty acknowledgement of violence completed. Task finished, move on. He searched the vehicles, found water. 5 gallons in the back of the 3rd truck, found weapons, more AKs, couple of pistols, a shotgun, found money, cash, dollars and pesos mixed together, maybe 10,000 American. Blood money, dirty money, the kind that had funded misery up and down the supply chain. He took the water, left the weapons, left the money, let the desert have it all. Let the next scavenger or border patrol or whoever stumbled on this scene try to make sense of what happened. His truck had taken hits, but nothing critical. One round through the hood, another that took out the mirror. Cosmetic damage, still ran, still drove. Good enough. He climbed in, started the engine. It turned over smooth, reliable. He pointed the truck northeast, following the general direction the Tacoma had gone. Not chasing, just following. Making sure they made it to the highway, making sure the people he'd just killed had died for something instead of nothing. The sun tracked across the sky. The heat didn't relent. The desert shimmered with mirages that looked like water, but were just light bending through superheated air. False promises. The desert specialized in those, offering hope and delivering death. He drove for an hour, saw the highway in the distance, saw the Tacoma pulled over on the shoulder, saw people standing around it, alive, safe, mission accomplished. He didn't approach, didn't introduce himself, didn't need their thanks or their questions or their story. He'd done what needed doing, they'd survived. That was enough. He turned the truck east, paralleled the highway at a distance, found a dirt road that led back into the emptiness, disappeared again, became nobody. Just another vehicle in the desert that could have been anyone going anywhere. The sun started its descent toward the western horizon. The heat began its slow retreat. Another day ending in the Chihuahuan desert, where violence was currency and survival was success, and the only rule that mattered was stay alive until tomorrow. He drove until he found his camp, same place he'd left it. Solar panel, water storage, ammunition cans that held supplies instead of bullets. Radio equipment for monitoring border patrol and sheriff frequencies. Everything he needed to live in the places between civilization. He climbed out of the truck, stretched. His back hurt, knees hurt, shoulder hurt from the rifle recoil. Getting old was just inventory of pains that never quite healed. He walked to his camp chair, sat down, looked out at the desert turning gold and red in the sunset. Beautiful in the way dangerous things were beautiful, honest, unforgiving, real. His radio crackled. Border patrol frequency. Chatter about a vehicle pursuit that had ended with multiple bodies found in the desert. Suspicious circumstances, possible cartel activity. They were requesting investigation and crime scene processing. It would take hours. By the time anyone arrived, the story would be contaminated by wind and sand and the desert's casual destruction of evidence. They'd find bodies, find weapons, find money, try to piece together what happened. They'd fail. The desert kept its secrets, always had, always would. The old man poured himself water from one of the jugs he'd taken from the cartel trucks. Warm, tasted like plastic, better than nothing. He drank deep, replaced what the day had taken. The human body was 60% water. Lose too much and you stopped being human. became just meat waiting to return to dust. Have you ever wondered what it takes to live in the spaces nobody else wants, where the temperature kills, where the nearest help is measured in hours instead of minutes, where every decision could be your last? Drop a comment if you've ever chosen hard living because it was honest living, because it kept you sharp, because the alternative was going soft in some air-conditioned cage, pretending the world was safe. He watched the sun disappear, watched the stars emerge, billions of them. The kind of sky you only got in the deep desert, where light pollution was measured in dozens of miles instead of feet. The universe, in all its vast indifference, made everything that happened today feel small, insignificant. 3 men dead. 4 if you counted the accident. Dozen more alive because he'd intervened. Simple math. But math didn't care. The universe didn't care. The dead were just molecules returning to circulation. The living were just molecules temporarily maintaining organization. But he cared. That was the thing they'd never managed to train out of him. All the years of conditioning, all the operations where caring got people killed, all the missions where the objective mattered more than the lives spent achieving it. Somehow, he'd retained the capacity to care, to see people as people instead of assets or targets or collateral. Maybe that made him weak. Maybe that made him human. Maybe those were the same thing. His phone buzzed, satellite phone, encrypted. One of the few pieces of equipment he'd kept from the old life. Text message, no name, just a number he recognized. Brief, economical, military communication style. Heard you made noise today. Status? He typed back. Alive. Situation resolved. No complications. Pause. Then, you getting soft in your retirement? Could have ghosted, didn't have to engage. He smiled. Small, brief. Typed, too old to change my nature now. Another pause. Longer. Then, stay safe out there. World still needs people like you even if it doesn't know it. He didn't respond. Pocketed the phone. Stood up. Walked to the edge of his camp, where the light from his solar setup faded into darkness. Looked out at the vast nothing. Heard the coyotes calling. Real ones this time. Not the human kind. Just predators doing what predators did. Surviving. Hunting. Living in the harsh places because that's where they belonged. He belonged here too. Had known it for years. The cities didn't fit anymore. The suburbs were suffocating. The normal life everyone else pursued felt like slow death. But out here in the desert where every day was a test and every decision mattered and the consequences were immediate and absolute, he felt right. Felt useful. Felt like the weapon he'd been forged into still served a purpose. Tomorrow, he'd break camp, move to a new location, stay mobile, stay unpredictable. The cartel would send people to investigate what happened to their crew. They'd find the bodies, find the evidence of professional work, start asking questions. Better to not be around when they came looking. Better to be a ghost story, an anomaly, something they couldn't quite explain or track or eliminate. The ghost of the border. That's what the locals called him when they told stories. The old man who appeared when people needed help, who fought cartels and coyotes and anyone else who preyed on the desperate, who disappeared afterward like smoke. Some thought he was a vigilante, some thought he was crazy, some thought he was former government gone rogue. They were all partially right and completely wrong. He was just a man, old, tired, skilled, dangerous when necessary, living in the desert because it was honest, because survival here required competence instead of politics, because the rules were clear. Kill or be killed. Help or hide. Act or die. Simple, clean, real. The temperature dropped 20 degrees in an hour after sunset. That was the desert's other face. Furnace by day, freezer by night. He pulled on a jacket, settled into his chair, let the night sounds wash over him. Coyotes, wind, the subtle ticking of cooling metal from his truck. Symphony of the desert. The kind of music you couldn't stream or download or share. You had to be here, had to earn it, had to survive long enough to appreciate it. His mind drifted to the people in the Tacoma, wondered what their story was, what they'd stolen that was worth dying for, whether they'd make it past the highway, past the checkpoints, into whatever life they were running toward. Most wouldn't. Statistics were brutal, but some would. Some always did. Found ways to survive despite the odds. Built lives in the margins, became invisible. Disappeared into the American machinery that required their labor, but preferred not to acknowledge their existence. He didn't judge. Judgment required moral certainty, and he'd lost that somewhere between his third tour and his fifth, lost it in villages that didn't exist on maps and operations that never made it into official records, and the slow realization that the good guys and bad guys were just different flavors of the same violence. The only difference was who wrote the after-action report. Out here in the desert, there were no reports, no oversight, no rules except the ones you carried in your own head. That made him dangerous, also made him free. Freedom and danger, same coin, different sides. He'd chosen which side to live on a long time ago. The night deepened. The stars wheeled overhead, constellations his father had taught him as a child. Before the wars, before the operations, before he became someone else. He could still name them. Orion, Cassiopeia, Ursa Major. Ancient patterns, ancient stories. People long dead looking up at the same lights and finding meaning in the chaos. What meaning was there in today? 3 dead men, dozen living ones. Simple addition and subtraction. But meaning required context, required understanding what the dead men would have done if they'd succeeded, how many people they would have killed, how many lives they would have destroyed in service to an economy built on poison and desperation. The math worked, the intervention was justified, but that didn't make it clean. Violence was never clean. Even righteous violence left stains. He'd carry today with all the others, add it to the collection. Another memory filed away in the museum he carried in his skull. Another confirmation that he was still the weapon he'd always been. Still useful. Still necessary. Still willing to do what needed doing when the moment required it. The radio crackled again. More chatter about the scene. Crime scene techs had arrived. They were documenting, photographing, collecting evidence that would never tell the full story. The old man who'd killed 3 men and saved a dozen more would remain a ghost, an unknown. A gap in the narrative that investigators would try to fill with theories and speculation and ultimately give up on because the desert didn't yield its secrets easily. He stood up, stretched again, walked to his sleeping area. Basic bedroll under a tarp strung between his truck and a mesquite tree. No tent, no comfort, just function. He lay down, looked up at the stars through the tarp's gap. Let the day drain away. Let his body settle into the aches and pains that were the price of violence. Let his mind drift towards something like sleep. But before sleep came, he thought about the man he'd let walk away. The survivor. The one who'd surrendered. Wondered if that man would make it back to civilization, if he'd learn anything from today. If he'd find a way out of the life that had put him in the desert with an AK chasing people who'd made the mistake of stealing from the wrong people. Probably not. Most didn't. Most rode their trajectories straight into prison or graves. That was the math. But maybe this one time, maybe seeing his friends die in seconds, maybe facing his own death and getting offered mercy instead, maybe that changed something, planted a seed, created possibility where none existed before. The old man didn't believe in redemption, didn't believe people fundamentally changed, but he believed in moments. Believed that sometimes a single moment could shift trajectories just enough to matter. Today had been one of those moments. For the people in the Tacoma running for their lives, for the man walking south across the desert, for himself standing between hunters and prey and choosing which side to support. Tomorrow would bring new moments, new choices, new opportunities to be useful or invisible or dangerous or merciful. That was the job. That had always been the job. Living in the spaces between, acting when action was required, disappearing when it wasn't. Being the ghost the border needed even if it didn't know it needed him. The desert kept its secrets, the stars kept wheeling, and somewhere in the vast darkness between civilization and chaos, an old man closed his eyes and slept the light sleep of people who'd learned that survival required staying ready. Even in dreams, even in rest. Always ready, always watching. Always waiting for the moment when the world required him to be what he'd always been. A weapon. A ghost. A legend nobody could prove existed. The desert's own answer to the violence that bled across borders and killed the innocent and preyed on the desperate. He was the mathematics of retribution, the equation that balanced books written in blood, the variable that showed up when predators thought the odds were in their favor, and tomorrow, Somewhere in the Chihuahuan desert where the heat killed and the land showed no mercy, he'd wake up and do it all again. Because that was the job. Because someone had to. Because the desert needed its ghost. The wind picked up, carried sand and sage and the smell of distant rain that might never arrive. The coyotes called their hunting songs. The night settled into the deep silence that came before dawn, and the ghost slept. Dreaming or not dreaming, ready or not ready, it didn't matter. When the moment came, he'd move. And somewhere, someone would survive, because he had. That was enough. That had to be enough.